One has a red beard, the other has a black beard. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to find out more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at www.beardedtheologians.com. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians today. On our little video cast, we're going to talk about Camp Ministries, and so today I'll ask Zach, why is camp important?
You know, I didn't really come into camping. I didn't do church camp or anything like that until I was a youth pastor. I went once as a youth, but it was more of an adventure camp than it was a youth camp. And I did a lot of Boy Scouts. Boy Scout camping and things like that, summer camps growing up. But the thing that I drew from it, not only being a youth and doing Boy Scouts, but moving into ministry and doing church camps, taking youth groups on church camps, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the importance of coming together as a community of believers and having so many people of your age and, having that and coming together in that was huge, and I saw it be huge for a lot of students in growing their faith and growing relationships. And it's really neat with Facebook and the way the internet things work today. You can see those relationships continue to bloom just between people. But I also encounter folks all the time who, where did you first encounter God? And they say, well, at camp. I saw him at camp for the first time. And to me, that's huge. We can't ignore those experiences from people of where they've met God for the first times or experienced His love and grace. And a lot of the times those happen at camp for kids that are able to go, and really adults that are able to go. I hear it from them as well. Franks, what about you?
I know for me, I didn't grow up going to church camp at all. I don't think I'd never had any experience going to any kind of church camp. I went to basketball and baseball camps and band camps all the time, but never really had that church camp experience like a lot of people I know do. For me, I got thrusted into it the summer that I was going into college. My youth director said, hey, they always need people to help with camp. Why don't you go help with camp? And so at that time, I'd only really been a Christian for about 3 years. And I was a little bit nervous about that because, you're asking me to be a leader and to help nurture young people to grow closer to God, and I'm still wrestling with this myself. I struggle with that at first, but now looking back at it, it was like one of the greatest things that could have ever been done for me because it threw me into the water, and I learned a lot in that first experience. And I feel like if you have a great experience at camp, it's like a drug. You can never get enough of it. You always have to go back. And ever since that first summer in 2001, I've always wanted to be involved in camp in some way, shape, or form. And I think for the most part, there's only a couple of years where I wasn't involved, but I've always been involved. And I've always enjoyed watching those relationships being built, whether it's like this year at our 6th grade camp that I'm doing. We've had the luxury of actually having kids that were part of our first 6th grade camp come back and be leaders in training, and that's kind of been a great thing. That speaks a lot about us, that we have people that are interested in coming and wanting to be a part of that. And I think that's what camp does. Camp connects us closer to God in a way that a local church just really can't do. There's nothing wrong with that. I think churches need church camp. I think it allows us to disconnect, and it allows us to grow closer to God. And we can't replicate what happens at camp in the church, but we can grow from that, and we can definitely grow closer to God in that moment and bring that back with us.
I totally agree. I'm kind of like you. I got thrust into it, and taking youth groups to camp and things like that, I got to see those things, like I said. But it wasn't until I started leading camps that, one, I truly got to see where kids were coming from in building those relationships, but also be a part of that, to sit and to get to plan what happens at my respective camp that I led, and how do we make it better? How do we bring those experiences to our youth? How do we bring them to the feet of Jesus and let them walk with them? in their own ways. And that was always really cool to me. In the camp that I led it with college students, and a lot of those college students had gone to this junior high camp that the college students led. So they were going in at junior high, going to this camp, going all the way through high school, and then getting out of high school and coming to my Wesley Foundation to help run this camp because they had such a great experience and they wanted to pass that along. And I always felt really honored by that, because when somebody comes out of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and they go all through high school with the plans of, I'm going to go to this university to be a part of this campus ministry so I can give back to this camp, that's huge. That camp definitely made an impact in their life to help build the relationship with people and with God, that they want to go 4 years and then come out and go be a part of that still. You know, and that's where one of the first times I saw camping ministry in that light of this is building lasting relationships. This is building you know, huge bricks in the kingdom of God to move forward and to spread that news and to do that work. And so I always really that's kind of where I go. And I'm like you, I can't get enough. I get to go this weekend and be a dad for my kids at camp, which is pretty cool. I've not been able to go in that role, so I'm looking forward to that and to experience camp on that level with my kids.
I know for me, I'm actually looking forward to this year. I run the 6th grade camp, and then right as 6th grade camp's going along, there's a 3-day elementary camp that runs. We call it Across the Creek. We call them all the people across the creek. And this year, my oldest will actually be across the creek, and so it'll be kind of cool for me. Because I kind of go and talk to the kids that should be coming over next year, and it'll be really cool for me just to be like a distant presence, watching my child getting to have a great experience at camp. And so I'm kind of excited to get to watch that. I know, like for me, I look forward to it every year. I do a 6th grade camp that I'm in charge of worship, and every year I'm always kind of innovating and doing something different. Or you know, I've been doing it for 7 years now, and some things just haven't changed. I was looking at my thing to get ready for in the next couple of weeks, and I was like, "There's not much I have to change." Now there are some things that you always have to change, and you take in heart with that, and you just kind of always be prepared to make adjustments as your camp is needed. This year we've actually doubled our size for 6th grade camp, so I'm having to rethink a few things, how we do worship, and a little bit kind of keeping some of the same elements, but as we've grown to a size that it's a little bit less intimate, how do we still keep that intimacy as a larger group? And that's a challenge, but I'm looking forward to it. I think that this go around is going to be, I know that, and that's what we look for. We look forward to be able to create an experience for people to see Jesus and whatever it is they do. Maybe they're making a creek walk and they kind of feel that the rush of the Spirit touch and change their heart. Or maybe they're sitting in small group and somebody says something that it finally makes the connection for them in their walk of faith. Or maybe it's just a leader who loves on a child that child needed that helps them when they go home to know that there is somebody that loves them. There is somebody that cares for them, and that's something that carries them on even to the next summer. I think that's the things that when we talk about camp that we should be striving for, is helping people make that connection to God in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. I hear that over and over again from youth and children of, man, you were my small group leader, or, you know, this person was my small group leader, and they had that connection forever with them, it seems. And they're so important, because you can tell the ones who really experience that love and encouragement from somebody else that they didn't expect to. You know, you talk about walking alongside the creek and experiencing God there. Our camp is up in the mountains, and so we get to have true, literal mountaintop experiences. You know, hiking and being around and having those things, but which is really cool. And it's nice to get up out of the desert heat. But what do we do with those mountaintop experiences that we have at camp? How do you encourage your people, your children and youth and adults to bring those mountaintop experiences home?
I think when I think about that, and how do we kind of make that to help them grow their faith, or even to make those connections stronger. I try to find ways to keep them always connected to camp, whether it's, hey, let's go have a work day down there, or hey, they're having a camp reunion party, let's go be a part of that, and you'll get to see some of the people that you'll see. Or, there's a lot of events that we can reconnect with some of those people, and I find that to be helpful. I find that to be kind of encouraging for people to know that they can still go see those people in a setting, that's designed kind of as a camp reunion. I know for like us, it's going back to Frontier City in Oklahoma City in August and seeing all the people that we saw at district camp and all that stuff. And that's been a huge deal. I think how we really kind of help us grow in our faith is ask the question, what'd you really experience? And maybe they're not able to fully articulate it. Maybe they're still wrestling with that, but just kind of continually ask them, hey, I know you had a great experience at camp. Let's talk about what you feel the next steps are, and kind of nurture them and disciple them along, and say, and keep being encouraging to them. I think far too often we'll have those mountaintop experiences, whether it be a mission trip or a camp or some event, and then we're left with, what do we do next? And I think if we take an Acts 2 approach to that, if instead of saying, what do we do next, saying kind of, where is the Spirit leading us? And asking that question and being honest with ourselves and saying, when we were up there, we felt God leading us to do this kind of ministry or to be involved in this kind of way. And fully inserting ourselves and allowing the Spirit to lead us and guide us and work on us. I think that's what makes those mountaintop experiences great. And if you think of like the mountaintop experiences in the Bible that are kind of, important, we look at Moses and his mountaintop experience and what did he do from there? And the hard part is in the moment, we can't look from the outside and say, okay, here's where we're going. We can only put our trust in the Holy Spirit to continue leading us. And that's where we need people to continue encouraging us to continue on. And I think that's what we do when they come down from the mountain, that we continue to encourage them to grow closer to God. And here are some ways that you can do that. And it may not look like camp, but here are some ways that if you truly open yourself up, like you did at camp, if you truly just world like you do at camp, maybe here's some ways the Spirit can still speak to you. What about you, Zach?
That's right. And too oftentimes we leave camp at camp, or a mission trip on a mission trip. We come home on that last day, and as we're driving home, we leave that experience there, and we can only have that experience at camp. We can only have that experience on a mission trip. We've talked ourselves into that idea, and you're right. We can't recreate the same experiences at home as we can at camp or any other big trips or events that we do. But we can encourage to have those conversations. Where do you see God at work in your life now? Where do you see God at work in your life through camp? How do we begin to bring that home and begin to unpack it a little bit more, rather than just saying, oh, well, that happened at camp, we're going to leave it at camp, and next year when we go back, we're going to pick it back up there. No, I think we got to bring those home. Got to keep them with us in our hearts and in our souls, and as we encounter Christ and in other ways at home, let Him begin to unpack that and work through us, like you say, in the Acts 2 way of where do we go from here? How do we put this in play, and how do we figure it out? How do we let the Holy Spirit lead us? And I think that's the beauty of what camp does. It lays that foundation of those experiences of being outside of the real world, in a camping experience where it's just you, God, and people that aren't trying to pull you away or anything like that, and we can fully open ourselves up and be receptive to that. And we try to bring as much of that home as we can, and not let the world get in the way. But those experiences are wonderful. They're great, and they're so important and so foundational to how we do ministry today. I think you and I have shared just a little bit of how camping's been huge in our lives, and building those foundations to come home and continue on in ministry. And so I think that's what it is. We do our best to bring them home.
And I think that's the key. I think when you're building a staff, if you're building a staff, I think you try to build a staff where you're going to have a sense of family and a sense of community with your staff. I have found that with sixth grade camp, that is something that Cindy and I work really hard on, is that we want to recruit people that want to be part of our family. And that for a week, we're working really hard to make sure that kids have a great experience from camp. And I think that that's been a really helpful thing for us in the way that we do, especially our sixth grade camp. I noticed a real huge shift in that is that when we've really made a true heart of trying to create a family and trying to make sure that everybody's doing what they need to do to make this experience great, we have a great time. The kids have a great time. And I think that that's important for our staffs to remember is that, hey, you're there to be part of a team. This isn't about you and your feelings, whether it's too hot or too cold, but you're there to be the hands, feet, and heart of Jesus for these children that have been gifted to you. And sometimes you're going to have difficult children. But what I've discovered is that within those difficult children, that's where we see God the most. And maybe that not only do they need God, but maybe it helps us reshape and kind of grow close to God, even trying to in the midst of those struggles. And I think where we go from that is to continue to be that family, not only, when you see them at an event, encourage them, say, hey, how's it going? I think that those are important. I know for me, I've reached a point in my life where I'm starting to see people that were my campers now going into ordained ministry. And that's kind of a trip. That's kind of hard to swallow at times. But I also know that that's, some of the work that we do is to help those seeds be planted and to continue to encourage people to grow closer to God. And that's why, we all have safe sanctuary issues that we have to follow. And I encourage you to follow those, but that doesn't mean that when a child is at an event that you happen to be at, that you can't say, hey, how's it going? How are you doing since camp? And I think that those questions are important. They help kind of make that connection again, and it may reset, or may re-spark the child to follow whatever it is God has called them to do.
That's right. It may have been the affirmation that they needed to go, oh yeah, it's not just me who feels this way. Somebody else sees it too. And so those are huge moments.
So as we bring today to a close, we want to encourage you to be involved in your camp ministry. Those ministries are so important to the life of the church, whether it's going a week or weekend or a couple of days, helping out in your camps, or maybe it's giving a gift of financially. Maybe you can't go physically, but maybe you could spot and sponsor a child to go to camp. I know that's something that we talk about a lot around here, is that if you can't go, why don't you sponsor a child? Because there are a lot of children that don't have families that can't afford to go, but would love to go or would love to have an experience at camp. And, find a way to help encourage them that. And then, the other thing is just to be an active participant, because maybe you had a camp experience, and share that with people that are thinking about camp or going into camp, and talk about how your experience shaped and changed you in your walk of faith. And so, consider those things as we bring this Beardcast to a close. We want to encourage you to continue on those annual conference memes. We've enjoyed the ones that we've seen so far, but, we'd always love to have more. And then don't also forget to check out our website for other cool things that we have going on. So for this Beardcast, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold.
And we're the Bearded Theologians, and we will see you next time.